Be the envy of the neighborhood. 860 KKAT, where the grass is always greener. Welcome to Gardening Utah. Here's composter and show hoster, Jana Francis.
Welcome to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. Every week here on Gardening Utah, we give you garden inspiration and advice from experts across the state. We talk about all things vegetables, flowers, trees, shrubs, and of course, your lawn. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope that this show is something that you will look forward to checking with every single week. Episodes drop every Friday on Apple Podcasts to get you ready for working in the yard and just hanging out in the garden on the weekend. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. And this show also airs on the radio here in Utah on the weekends. My hope is that this is a fun and informative show that you can listen to while you're getting to work in the garden, while you're out and about shopping at the nurseries or garden centers, to get you inspired and you can stay in the know in all the tasks that you need to accomplish in the garden that week. So let us know what you would like to see on Gardening Utah. You can message us on Instagram. Our handle is @GardeningUtah, and we can have one of our experts answer your question on an upcoming show. So let us know what your garden questions are. Just send us that. Slide into those DMs on Instagram. So I am so excited for today's show. We're going to be talking with our guest, Cameron Allcott from Progressive Plants. Now, if you're wondering what Progressive Plants is, it's that 100-acre massive nursery out in Copperton, and it's very likely that you have some Progressive plants in your yard. They supply a lot of the ornamentals for all the local garden center nurseries here in Utah, which I love to support, by the way. And I will tell you a lot more about him in a minute, but we're going to be telling you all about ornamental plants. We're going to be talking about landscape design. He's going to run us through a lot of the mistakes that Utahns make when they're planting their garden and landscaping. And we're also going to be talking about the history of progressive plants. It's pretty fascinating. And we're going to go over a lot of planting combinations. He's going to kind of give us his very favorite combination of perennials and shrubs that you can put in your garden now and have blooms all summer long and that will come back every single year. It's fascinating. But first, the tip of the week.
860 KKAT with your Gardening Utah tip of the week.
My tip of the week is to plant an early spring container garden. Now, you may think it's way too early to plant in containers this time of year because you need to wait and fill them with annuals once the danger of frost is over in May. But there are so many tough plants that you can plant now and really dress up your entryway or patio. Things like heuchera, pansies, violas, primrose, hellebores, ivies. Make a list. We're going to put that up on Garden Utah Instagram. But there's so many even more ornamental plants like arborvitae and dwarf spruces look amazing in container gardens. So head on over to your local nursery or garden center and see what strikes your eye and dress up that patio or porch now. And that was the tip of the week.
Never miss a tip for your garden and never miss an episode. The Gardening Utah Podcast with Jana Francis at 860kkat.com/garden. Here's Jana Francis.
Let's get into some of the gardening related events coming up in Utah. There are so many amazing events on the way. This is not a complete list, but there's just a few that caught my eye that I think will be really interesting to all of you. So I love orchids. You guys know that. The Spring Orchid Show is Saturday, April 4th at Red Butte Gardens, and I will definitely be going. Also at Red Butte Gardens on Saturday, April 11th, the Spring Bonsai Show is there, and that's always so interesting. And guess what else is coming up? I look forward to this every single year. Tulip Festival at Thanksgiving Point starts April 10th, and it goes through May 2nd. And if you've never been, you absolutely must. It's kind of like a really quick trip to Holland because it is so, so gorgeous. Anyway, if you have any events that you know of coming up, please let us know. You can send us a message at Gardening Utah on Instagram and let us know because we'd love to give your event a little shout out. And, you know, I was inspired the other day. I was talking to one of my neighbors. I live in the Murray-Taylorsville area, and she was telling me that a group of people in our area have gotten together to create some gardening classes over in Taylorsville. And with the goal that I believe it's sometime in September, and I'll keep you guys informed, they're teaching people in the area to garden, those that don't know how to, and this is more specific to vegetable gardening. They've asked me to help teach a class, and I'm really excited to do that. We don't have the dates outlined just yet, but they're going to be just kind of teaching the neighborhood what to plant and how to plant vegetables. And then in September, they're going to do a harvest swap. And I think this is such a fun idea. So if you have too many tomatoes, or, we all end up with way too many zucchinis, those of us who garden, plant those types of vegetables, we all have so many zucchinis. So everybody can kind of get together and do a little bit of a harvest swap. So I thought that's the coolest idea. So if you're listening to this in a different city, I would encourage you to do the same. Just get together with some people, and if you decide to do it, let me know at Gardening Utah on Instagram, and I would be happy to, let people in your neighborhood know about it through this podcast. Anyway, that being said, I am so excited for today's show. I have the coolest guest, and he's with me here in studio. I am excited to tell you about Cameron Allcott. So Cameron works at Progressive Plants, which, by the way, if you've planted anything or bought anything from nurseries anytime recently, for a really long time in your yard, it is very, very, very likely that you have something from Progressive Plants, if not a lot from Progressive Plants. Cameron has nearly 30 years of experience growing ornamental trees, shrubs, and perennials. He also thinks he's really funny, so keep letting him think so. Cameron grew up in the nursery business, and he has extensive plant knowledge and is always on the bleeding edge of new cultivars. I'm actually reading this right from his website bio on progressiveplants.com. His experience running the growing operation at the nursery gives him a unique understanding of what performs in Utah and under what conditions. He likes to use lots of color and mass plantings coupled with unique structured plants to create a statement in his landscape designs. Also, he is very well versed in maintenance techniques for individual plants, and he's often teaching classes in design and often consulting with contractors and landscape architects on plant selection. Cameron, thank you so much for being on Gardening Utah.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. This is exciting.
We recently I reached out to him through Facebook. He's also the admin of the Utah Gardeners group, and I was so excited to get to talk to him and have him on the show. And we had a conversation the other night, and it was so interesting. And I kept wishing, oh my gosh, I wish this was the actual podcast, because
I know, it was a long conversation too.
It was a long and really interesting, fun conversation. We had quite a few laughs. Anyway, so we are going to be coming back after the break. We're going to be talking with Cameron all about planting combinations, plants you can plant now. We're going to talk a lot about ornamental plants, landscape design, and we're just really going to get to pick his brain for, the rest of this show. So I'm so excited, and we will be back right after this.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden. Here's Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and with me here in studio is Cameron Allcott from Progressive Plants, and we are just already having a ball, laughing and dancing and having just a great time. So we're going to talk on this segment about planting combinations, and we're just going to pick your brain. So let's go.
All right, let's do this.
So let's start with, what types of things can you start planting now? I mean, what do you...
Generally speaking, I mean, if it's like wintered here, like you can plant anytime. We actually do like a lot of our tree production in January.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you can dig a hole, you can plant.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of things that you want to be a little leery of bringing in out of Oregon, because, they're usually a couple of weeks ahead of us.
Yeah.
So you bring them in, then you end up nipping them because we freeze really hard.
Yes.
With our frost here. But if you've got stuff that's wintered over at a nursery, sometimes you'll actually even get better performance out of that stuff over the course of the year than you would when you try to bring something in out of Oregon.
Interesting.
So, sorry.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about Let's start again with tell us a little bit about Progressive Plants, because like I said earlier, if you've bought from any nursery or garden center, it is very likely you have something from Progressive Plants in your yard.
Yeah, we're one of the largest growers in the Intermountain West. So we actually grow a lot of our trees, shrubs, and perennials for the Intermountain West. So we started in 1985. My mom and my stepdad and one other guy ended up starting it after they left a company called Native Plants Incorporated, and they started it out of this other guy's house. And then Native Plants went out of business, and then we took over their spot, and then the nursery grew, and it got busier and busier. And then we ended up having to move out into the Copperton area onto the 100 acres that we have out there now.
100 acres. Wow.
Yep.
And so Copperton is, for those of you who haven't heard of Copperton, tell them where it is.
It's at the base of the copper mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, right west of South Jordan. We're actually kind of like right where South Jordan and West Jordan and Copperton all meet.
Yeah.
Right there.
It's a beautiful location.
Yeah, it's large.
Yeah. And so a lot of people don't realize that you can actually buy plants from Progressive Plants. You don't necessarily need to go to your garden center.
No, you don't necessarily need to. We're venturing out into the retail world a little bit. The funny thing is when you're 100 acres, it's really hard to manage.
Yeah.
If that kind of makes sense. But nowadays we have this magical thing called the internet. And that's been really kind of cool because, if people could order stuff off of things like Amazon and order stuff and go pick it up like Walmart pickup, it was like, why can't we do this?
Right.
So that's what we've kind of done. So our guys typically will just go and pull orders all day long of plants that you want to get, and they just arrange them all for you. Then they load them up in your truck or car or hatchback. I've put trees in hatchbacks before. That's always kind of scary. But whatever.
So you can go to progressiveplants.com, pick out whatever you want, and go and pick it up in Copperton.
Yep.
That is amazing. I love that. And tell us a little bit about where else can you find Progressive Plants?
We sell a lot to the major independent garden centers around here. So West Side Nursery, they're a good place to go. Knowles Nursery, even Glover Nursery will buy stuff from us. Those are probably the main ones here, like in the Salt Lake Valley. We sell a lot into the resort towns, so Park City, Sun Valley, Jackson Hole, Telluride areas, Aspen, those places you can, if you're listening out of state, you can go to your garden centers near there and buy our stuff there.
Oh, interesting. So tell me, when I talked to you the other day on the phone, I mentioned that when I landscaped my home, I have a lot of trees from Progressive Plants, but I got it through my landscaper. Yeah. And he was mentioning that a lot of it came in from Sandpoint, Idaho. And that sparked a cool discussion. So talk to us about that.
There's a lot of things that you can't really grow in Utah because our climate's not really great for it. Like conifers, for instance, like a lot of spruce trees. They growing them in Utah. I mean, the native one that you can do, but sometimes when you're up in Idaho, the cooler weather actually promotes more growth over a longer part of the growing season. So they can actually get trees bigger faster and for less money.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it ends up being, less to grow them in, the panhandle of Idaho, and ship it down here than it is to a lot of times grow things here. Because they can do it faster.
Wow.
Yeah, because once you hit 9,500 degrees here, I mean, trees don't really want to grow. They just kind of sit there.
Yeah.
Some plants do a little bit better. A lot of your deciduous plants will actually end up still growing in those temperatures, especially if you feed them full of fertilizer. But yeah, some of the species that are out there, you just kind of have to do them in other areas. So broadleaf evergreens, like boxwoods that everybody loves to use around here. Yeah, I'm not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole because they just don't perform very well in a container in a nursery setting.
Oh, wow. That blows my mind.
Yeah, it's really interesting. However, you get some trees, like crab apples, for instance. Utah is a great place to grow crab apples.
Yes.
Choke cherries, like the Canada Red choke cherry that's really popular, just performs amazingly here in Utah. And Oregon, the mecca of growing stuff, they hate them.
You're kidding.
No, they get all sorts of diseases and they have all sorts of weird issues with them. So they actually don't do very well with them. So a lot of times we'll get like little whips and starts, and we'll bring them here, and then we'll just size them up into different container sizes and whatnot, and they just end up being gorgeous.
Wow,
So,
I love that. How long, in general, some of these trees that you're buying at when the average size of trees in nurseries, how long have they been growing?
That kind of depends. For the commercial market, the standard is about a 2-inch tree. That's a 2-inch caliper, is measured up about 6 inches from the base. It can be anywhere between like 7 to 10 years. A lot of times. So, and a lot of people don't think about why are trees so expensive? And I'm like, well, you just put 7 years of labor into that, fertilizer and blood, sweat, tears, and, whatever pesticides that you had to throw down on the ground. And in garden centers, it seems like people will usually buy a little bit smaller tree because, they don't have tractors sitting around to, move these 2-inch trees. So like 10, 15 gallon trees are pretty typical. I bet they are 3 to 5 years, depending on the cultivar.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. You don't really think of that as you're walking through the garden centers, that how much love and care has already gone into producing that.
It's a lot. I mean, I've done things from propagation all the way to bringing it to market. And it's a lot of work. And you get really attached to what you're growing. It's kind of like when you raise your children and send them out into the world or on a mission, just kind of see what they're going to go do. So it's really satisfying. Like one of my favorite things to do at the nursery is, propagation, like doing cuttings or seeds or whatever. And going through that process of going from a little teeny tiny plug tray into like a 1 gallon, then from like a 1 gallon into like a 5 gallon, which can take like 3 years.
Wow.
Depending on what it is.
Yeah.
But to actually see them move like en masse to go onto like somebody's property or a commercial job or something like that, that is really satisfying to see that.
Wow.
So, because it's really fun for me. It makes me happy to grow things. And my hope is that when something lands in somebody's yard, that it brings them the same type of happiness. Does that kind of make sense?
I love this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So like hydrangeas make me really, really happy. And so I sell a lot of hydrangeas because they make me happy. And then my hope is that they make people happy. And I've never known anyone who's hated a hydrangea in their lives. So
I know it's hard to hate hydrangeas.
Yeah. Unless you kill them, then you hate them.
Yeah. Well, they are a little bit tricky to grow here.
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. The panicle hydrangeas are actually remarkably easy, and they're tough as nails. Like you can grow them up in Park City, like without a problem.
Whoa.
Yeah. The moose might eat them.
Yeah.
But, you can grow them without any issues. Like if you go over in Holiday, if you look at the Holiday City building, whatever that is, City Hall, they actually have, I think they're limelight hydrangeas in front of the building over there, and they are gorgeous in August.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a note to go check those out.
They're really, really pretty. And then if you stalk our Facebook page, you'll see some pictures. I think I actually put one of my mom in there. She's standing in the middle of our field of phantom hydrangeas. And phantom hydrangeas probably have like the largest flowers I've ever seen on a hydrangea.
Whoa.
And my mom's, she's like 5'4", she's not like huge. But these, when you're the only person standing in 500 hydrangeas that are in full bloom, like it looks like she's just like standing in a field of pillows.
Oh my word.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so you've got this picture up on your Facebook page.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. If I don't, then I will make sure I put it up there after this.
Yeah. And so that's just Progressive Plants on Facebook, right?
Yeah, okay. Facebook.com/Progressive Plants.
Yeah.
But really easy.
And what else we need to do then is the hydrangea that you just mentioned, the variety. I'm going to want to put a picture on our Instagram at Gardening Utah. So if you're listening to this episode and wondering what this hydrangea is, head on to Instagram at Gardening Utah, and we'll put this on there so everybody can see. I love to hear that. So do you? You know where a lot of these plants go. Do you ever drive by somewhere and go,
all the time?
Oh, I love that.
All the time.
Tell me a story around that.
We send like a lot of plants to like the different schools. So we have a contractor who they install like a lot of the different schools, and they use us for a lot of their jobs. And so we just send plants there. A lot of places in Daybreak, because they're, right on our doorstep, we send a lot of plants over there. I ended up doing a condo complex, for a landscaper client of mine, over by Olympus High School, and it's really close to our house. And so I go and walk past it every single day. It was like a football field's length of pathway that he just like, here's your budget, have fun, knock yourself out. And so I had free reign to do whatever I wanted there.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
It's gorgeous. Like, it looks so cool.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have any pictures of this?
I'd have to go look.
Okay.
I think I was waiting another year because like the first year plantings, stuff just kind of sits like their first year. And so I wanted to go back this summer and take a look and take some pictures there. But I was actually really surprised like how much it grew just last year alone. So I think by July, the butterfly bush had bloomed, the hydrangeas were blooming, the perennials were just going nuts. The roses has kind of tapered off a little bit, but then they fired back up in September.
Sure.
It was gorgeous. It was really cool.
I've got to see this.
Yeah, I'll take you by there one day.
I would love to. So after we come back from the break, we're going to talk all about the planting combinations. And, it's just so interesting to hear you talking about all the different shrubs and plants and perennials and stuff like that. So that, tell me your favorite though, before we go to break.
My favorite plant?
Your favorite planting combo.
Oh, hydrangeas, butterfly bush, rose of Sharon, hibiscus family, and roses.
Oh, wow. I can envision that right now. I love it. Okay, up next after the break, we're going to talk more about planting combinations with Cameron Allcott from Progressive Plants.
860 KKAT with Jana Francis and Gardening Utah, where it's always mulch time. Growing everything from apples to zucchini. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and with me in studio is Cameron Allcott of Progressive Plants. So, Cameron, we were just talking a little bit about all the different plant combinations you love, and I was realizing so many people ask me all the time, and like probably the number one question I get is, hey, when I put in my garden, I want to pick your brain, and I am not the right person for that. And so how do you know what to plant?
The funny thing about Utah is that we do have some challenging areas around here to actually kind of plant in, and really the best resource to go to for understanding what to plant is really your local garden centers. They're the ones who have a lot of experience. They're the ones that have the passion. They're the ones that are doing all the experimentation. And everyone's going to have like their favorite plants that they want to use. I definitely have mine, as we kind of talked about, right before the break a little bit. But that's a really good resource of what to really understand or how to really understand what's going on in your own little area, because, you have to know what kind of dirt, what kind of water. It's important, but it's not like the end all be all when it comes to, planting design. My favorite planting combinations, like roses, rose of Sharon's and perennial hibiscus, that's just kind of like the same genus, hydrangeas and butterfly bush. For me, those are some of the longest blooming shrubs that are out there that are the least amount of maintenance.
Yeah.
And they give you color basically from May until, when we freeze in October.
That's a good point. Especially with the roses in there. Exactly.
And my philosophy has never been to plant like one or two of them, but plant like 5 or 6 or 7 or 12. That's how I look at it, because that's what really, in my opinion, looks good. Nothing looks better than a field of hydrangeas. There was one time I went to Bailey's nursery, and they're the ones that do like all the endless summer hydrangeas. They were gorgeous. I took my girlfriend there. It's in Minnesota. And we were just kind of like walking around, and Bailey's nursery is like, if you think our nursery is big at 100 acres, like Bailey's is like, they've got 5 lots of 1,200 acres apiece.
Whoa.
And we were just like driving around, the guy that was giving us a tour, and then we just like to see this front end loader just like picking up these gorgeous blooming endless summer hydrangeas of blue and pink. It is just, like 2 acres of them, and they're just throwing them away.
What?
Yeah. What? Because they didn't meet their sales goals.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's easier for them to just chuck stuff than it is to actually, try to give it away. So they just wholesale slaughter everything.
Oh my word.
Right. I don't put them in my yard, right?
I know. Set it out. Just tell people to come pick it up, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, that's how you get the coronavirus. Have everybody collecting all at once. That's maybe we should rethink this a little bit. But no, But that type of massing is what really looks good in your yard. And so it doesn't necessarily matter like what you do, it's just how you put it together. I like to do a lot of roses. I mean, there's a bunch of roses that I love. Like Lady Elsie May is a really good bloomer. We actually have it lining our driveway at the nursery. It blooms all summer long. Now, the funny thing about roses is that they bloom mostly based on temperature. So as long as you're below about 90 degrees, they're going to bloom pretty profusely. Once you get into the, like July when it's 157, they kind of stop. Okay.
Yes.
But when they stop, that's when your hydrangeas and butterfly bush, that's when they fire up.
Yeah.
Okay. And the funny thing about roses is that when it starts to cool off again, they start blooming again. So middle of August, they finish really strong in through September. So if you have that combination of the butterfly bush, perennial hibiscus, or the Rose of Sharon's, if you like those roses, and there was the other one that I forgot now. But if you plant all of those in your yard, they will just go crazy right as you want to enjoy your yard the most, because you know that fall is coming.
Yes.
So everybody's going to be out in the yard in late August, right before the kids go back to school, and then September, while you still can enjoy it, and your yard will look better than it ever has.
I love this. And the Rose of Sharon, those come on kind of in fall, right?
Mostly July.
Oh, okay.
I think is when I kind of see them usually firing up. I mean, most things in the valley. I mean, every year you can kind of bank on everything being within about 2 weeks of, the previous year.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on, the type of season that we have.
Yeah.
But. Now,
care for butterfly bush. I think that there's a lot of, I see people pruning them incorrectly and at the wrong time of year. Talk to us about that.
I kind of treat them like a perennial. I mean, if you want to cut them back to the ground or really close to it in the fall, I don't think there's anything really wrong with that, because the winter knocks them back pretty hard anyway.
Yeah.
Now, there are some that are a little bit more, beefy than others, like the new Pugster series that Proven Winners put out, which is like a little 2x2. It's adorable.
Really?
It is so cute. And you can pretty much leave that one up because it almost seems like it's semi-evergreen with at least it's been that way in my yard. But some of the bigger ones, don't do the old varieties like Black Knight, because that's just a weedy mess.
Yeah.
But some of the other newer ones that, Proven Winter stuff, like, the Miss series, like Miss Molly, Miss Ruby, Miss Violet, those you can usually cut back to around a foot or even more if you want to, and they'll come back and just be absolutely gorgeous the next year. If you like the structure, you can leave them up over the winter.
Yeah.
It's up to you. But I always just cut mine down at the end of the year just because I don't want to deal with it in the spring.
Yeah. Gotcha. So if you are listening and you're running to your drawer to get a pen and paper to write down these plants, I just want to let you know, we'll put these notes in the episode notes on Apple Podcasts so that you can have a look and get all of the information on exactly the plant combinations he just mentioned. We'll also put it on Instagram at Gardening Utah, maybe even some good photos that you have of this beautiful combo. So I'm loving this because I'm realizing I have everything you mentioned, except they're not all by each other. And so now I'm totally inspired to maybe, Yeah,
whatever you think you want to plant one, the reality is buy 5.
Yeah.
And put them all together.
Okay. I love this.
Yeah, it'll change your life.
Now, the hibiscus is something that I've seen lately is getting a lot of more popularity, and I'm completely obsessed with my hibiscus plants.
Yeah. The ones that Proven Winners did, I'm starting to sound like Laura from Garden Answer, just pimping out Proven Winners a whole bunch, but they've actually done a really good job. Their Summerific series, gorgeous.
Really?
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them. There's like Berry Awesome and a couple others that I can't remember. But if you jump on our website in the search feature and just put Summerific in the search, it'll bring them up, and they're amazing.
Summerific at progressiveplants.com. Is that where we find it?
No. You go to progressiveplants.com and just in the search engine, put Summerific.
Okay, perfect.
And it will take you right to them.
Yeah, I've got to see this.
Mm-hmm. You do.
The first couple blooms of the hibiscus in the summer they're just amazing. Yeah. I mean, I've got some of their dinner plate size. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're huge.
So listeners, put some hibiscus in your garden and comboed. with all these other plants. And I love this because, gardening is truly an investment in, money and time. And that's one reason that I love perennials so much is because...
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes, lots of blood, sweat, and tears.
Lots of blood.
Yeah, especially if you're pruning your roses. Those are stingers for sure. But, the fact that these combinations and plants will come back year after year after year and just get more and more beautiful over time is such a cool thing. So after the break, we're going to come back and talk to you guys, and we're going to ask Cameron about what mistakes he sees Utahns make. We'll be right back.
860 KKAT with Jana Francis and Gardening Utah, where it's always mulch time. Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden. Here's Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis, and with me in studio is Cameron Allcott of Progressive Plants. And we are having a blast having so many fun conversations. And we're going to get into this segment about some mistakes that Cameron sees Utahns make. But first, I'm going to ask you a question that I love to ask every guest.
Oh, boy. Why
do you love gardening?
Oh, why do I love gardening? That's a very good question. I think it probably had more to do with me getting really bad grades when I was a kid. And then my parents were like, we're going to teach you the value of hard work. And at 10 years old, I was working 10-hour days, 6 days a week.
Whoa.
And yeah, it was brutal. It's child abuse. Hi, Mom. So, and so that's where I kind of do that. Like, I hated it at the same time, but, I got to sit there in front of all of these little perennials that I was weeding. And I really kind of got to appreciate them a little. I hated them, but I appreciated them for what they really did. And I don't think I realized how much I really liked it until I kind of left the nursery for a little bit to go pursue like another career. And then realized like living under fluorescent lights was like the worst thing for my mental state. And because I don't think you work outside and then go inside. So now I do a little bit of both. The funny thing about horticulture is that the more you know about it, the less you actually work with it.
Isn't that the truth? It turns into
it turns into a desk job.
Yeah.
So every horticulture students, there you go. You're going to have a desk job when you get older. But that's what I really liked about it is that, you get outside and you don't realize like how plants really make you feel. Like, and so I've seen like a resurgence in what's been going on in the landscaping world over the last couple of years, where it seemed like in the 1990s and 2000s, everybody was like, hey, let's do like these really big decks and patios and pergolas. And I don't want to do any lawn maintenance whatsoever. And so we just have like these big sterile concrete jungles in people's yards. And like over the past decade, I think people have realized that that's actually a terrible state of being to live in.
Yeah.
It's like being inside all the time playing the Xbox the entire time. And now we have all these millennials who, and Gen Zers, I guess. I don't know what they're at now. But now they're like, oh, well, now we want experiences. And we go outside and we have like all of these trees and I want to learn how to garden and I want to grow my own food and I want to do all this stuff. But, I didn't get to do that because I played Xbox all day.
Yeah.
And so now you have this resurgence of people wanting to do stuff outside. And I'm like, well, this is great because the yard can be like a plant palette of a painting, I mean, like, what do you think Van Gogh was doing or Monet? They were just doing paintings. There was a landscape architect years ago. I think his name was Gar Campbell. My mom told me about him. He's since passed on, but he used to do a lot of stuff for like the temple, and he painted with plants, big giant brush strokes is what he did. In certain colors. It was all pastels. I mean, it's so 1980s. But that's what he did. I guess it was early 90s for pastels. But that's how he landscaped. And I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. So it was like kind of inspiring. That one little statement inspired me to design the way that I do.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's why I love it. I mean, it's an art form.
It totally is.
And if you end up hating it, it's like, just rip it out and put something else in.
Yeah.
Die, plant, die. So speaking of which, that's how people kill plants.
Yes. In fact, that leads us right into our next topic, which is, we talked earlier and you said why people kill things. So let's talk about some mistakes that you see Utahns make.
You kill stuff with kindness.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Almost every dead plant that I see, it's because it was overwatered.
Got it.
Which is weird to think, because we're in Utah and we don't have any water. But people usually they'll plant some, but they're like, okay, well, I got to baby it, so I'm going to give it lots and lots of water, and then they give it water like 5 times a day.
Oh no!
For months.
Yeah,
and it has this very slow death. I mean, it's like you're waterboarding it. Which was banned, by the way. I don't think they can use waterboarding anymore. Don't do that to your plants either. Your plants don't like that type of thing.
That's an excellent tip. Don't waterboard your plants.
Yeah, don't waterboard your plants. Is that okay to say on this?
I think so.
Okay, good. And then conversely, like a lot of times people like kind of plant things and forget them. So, a lot of people are like, oh, well, this is a water-wise plant. So they plant it and then they think they don't have to water it.
Yeah.
So it's like this weird thing. Like most plants have to go with like some sort of establishment phase. If you're below 80 degrees, you probably don't need to water every single day with a new planting. You can probably get away with like once every other day. I like to watch my plants. Plants are kind of like children. Okay. Think of your plants like your children when you can't hear them. You need to go see what your kid's doing. Go check on your plants because they don't talk to you.
I love that.
So you go and you look at them. Like if you plant it and it started wilting almost immediately, there's a good chance it needs a little bit of water. So throw some water on it and see if it perks back up. If it perks back up, bam, there you go. Just wait for it to wilt again. Like it will tell you when it needs water. Okay, you don't have to keep it looking healthy all the time. It will get itself established. It will take care of itself. Plants have existed for, billions of years without our help.
Right.
Like they know what to do.
Absolutely.
Especially once you get them established, then they'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So essentially the biggest mistake Utahns make is, improper watering.
Yep.
I love that.
100%.
Yeah. Give us some tips. I know that you work a ton with landscapers, right? Mm-hmm. Give us some advice along those lines. If someone is hiring a landscaper to put in their yard, so let's start there.
Typically, I would say don't go cheap. Find somebody who's licensed, find somebody who's insured, and find somebody who is also willing to bring in other experts to make sure that you get what you need.
I love that.
Okay. Because here's the one thing, there's a lot of landscapers that out there. The one thing that I will say is most landscapers, I say most, not all, because there are some who are very, very good at this, but most landscapers do not understand plants.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, which is okay. I wouldn't expect them to. I don't know how to build a deck.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hire a nursery grower to build a deck or install a sprinkler system, but I would trust him to tell me how to take care of a plant or what's going to be appropriate. So that is where I think that it kind of makes sense. And so, that's what I kind of did too, is that, there was a huge hole in the market for that. And so I actually reached out to a lot of my friends and who I think are really good designers and really good with plants. And so I started listing them on our website, like on the design part of our website. Those are probably like the smartest people that I know to help you figure out what's going to work in your yard. And the best part about it is that they will work with any landscaper.
Oh, I love that.
So we'll help you, like either myself or any members of my crew will. They will help you. They're all independent. They're not employed by me, but I feel really strongly that people need to have access to the correct information, and these are people that I will personally vouch for, integrity wise.
Yeah,
because they have the same passion that I do. Like Julie Palasma. I mean, she's great. She's a more of a high end designer, and I mean her installs are amazing. But she'll work with contractors, Elizabeth Hamilton for veggie gardening, which is something that I'm personally very weak in.
Yeah. And I believe she is going to be our next guest on Gardening Utah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a riot.
I can't wait.
Yeah, no, she's really kind of cool. Jessica Schmutz is somebody who's living in Utah County, and she's a wonderful designer, and she can help with just about anything, as is Jessica Hinsey. So, we've, and Malie Hokie, I mean, she's great with edibles. So we've got the whole gamut covered and could work with anybody because we really want people to be successful with their yards. I mean, there's nothing sadder than killing 15,000 seedlings. I've never done that ever in my life, I promise. I think, but this is how you learn. Like, you kill things, and that's how you learn how to be a better gardener. You know, I mean, I promise I've killed more stuff in the last year than most of you will kill in your lifetimes. So what does that make me besides really, really bad and evil? But that's how I've learned a lot of stuff too. So, it keeps you humble more than anything.
Absolutely. I mean, I was telling you when we talked on the phone that I'm not a horticulturist. I'm not a master gardener. I bring in the experts such as yourself, but I have learned everything I know from trial and error.
Yeah. Guess how much schooling I have? 0.
Really?
0.
Wow.
I ask questions.
Yep. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, you keep journals. You rely on others. I mean, I know what I know about growing because I asked other growers. You know, I was like, hey, how do you deal with Arctostophilus panchido? How do you propagate that? When do you propagate that? So you cut it this time of year, sir. I'm like, okay, thank you.
Wow.
You know, I've got other friends that just tell me things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the greatest thing about, like, I think gardeners as well, is that we like to share our knowledge because it's like sharing our bounties, you know, like we always grow like 3 zucchini plants. And then we're like, oh crap, I only needed like half a zucchini plant, you know, to feed myself and my family. You know, so that's where I think, you know, we want to share everything. We want to share our food, you know, we like tomatoes, zucchinis, you know, artichokes are mine. I'm going to hold on to those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're tasty. And, you know, I think it's the same way with knowledge, you know. I mean, most of the people in the nursery business, I mean, we'll share information back and forth. You know, we try to help each other out more than anything. You know, it's like the funny thing is, like, when I first took over the growing operation, you know, I had a broken injector. It's a fertilizer injector, and I had no idea how to fix it. And then one of my competitors, and I'm going to give a shout out to perennial favorites up in Layton for this. Preston Cox is probably one of the most stand-up people that I have ever met in my entire life, because he came down. You know, I'm his competitor. He came down to show me how to work my injector system.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And for those listening, what is an injector system?
An injector system is basically, we just, you know, have like fertilizer that we liquid feed into all of our plants, because we have like drip irrigation that goes into all of our 5-gallon shrubs. And so it just inserts fertilizer into the water system directly into the plant.
Oh, wow.
To make them grow.
Okay.
So... but, you know, that's kind of an example of how our industry works, which is why I really am a firm advocate of supporting independent garden centers, because if you don't support independent garden centers, that type of knowledge and that type of assistance and service will go away.
I am so passionate about that, because, you know, and that's part of the goal of this show is to really support and inform and really, you know, direct people to the local garden centers. Yeah,
it's huge. I mean, there's so much knowledge there. You know, so it's really sad to me, like, you know, Wasatch Shadows, I mean, they closed down, you know, because Lauren wanted to retire, you know, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, I was so
He's been doing this for a long time. You know, Gary up at J&L, he retired. They were up in Bountiful. You know, there's not a whole lot of people getting into this business anymore. You know, and that's why I think it's really important to preserve the knowledge. And, you know, I'm probably one of the youngest people in the nursery business at this point.
Wow.
And I'm old. Whopping 42.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was going to guess in the 30s, just so you know.
Oh, all right. Sounds
there
good
you
to
go. Okay. Well, Cameron, I have to have you back. This was so lovely and so fun.
I would love to be back, because I like to hear myself talk.
This has been a blast. Thank you so much for being here. And that's all for today's episode of Gardening Utah. As always, let us know what you'd like to see on the show. Message us on Instagram. Our handle is @GardeningUtah. Thank you to Cameron Allcott of Progressive Plants for joining me today. Next week, please join us again. And when you support our sponsors, you support our show. So give a shout out to our sponsors. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, and we give shout outs on the show for 5-star ratings. So give us a 5-star rating and we'll give you some love back. I'm Jana Francis. Thank you so much for listening. See you next week on Gardening Utah. Grow big or go home.
When you're ready to grow big or go home, make your neighbors green with envy. Get the Gardening in Utah podcast. Gardening Utah. Available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden.